Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for being here. We have a great crowd, looks to be, and thank you, Suzanne, for that great overview about the Kingsley. My name is Scott Heckes, and I'm a board member of the Kingsley. I serve on the Speakers Committee and several other committees, and I'm going to introduce our speaker today. So I'm honored, actually, to introduce Jack Ohman. It was actually one of our members, William Ishmael, was going to do the introduction today, but he became ill, and he rang me yesterday and said, would you mind stepping in? And I said, sure. And he said, really, the only thing you need to do is go up on stage and say, Jack won the Pulitzer Prize in 2016, and just walk off. But I have a little bit more that I want to say.
I got 20 minutes on that now.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Well, I'll be quick then, Jack. Here we go. Jack is an American editorial cartoonist and educator, as we all know. Jack's interest in politics began when he was in high school, when he worked as a political aide for the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. At the age of 17, he worked for the Minnesota Daily, the student newspaper of the University of Minnesota. And at 19, he was the youngest cartoonist ever to be nationally syndicated. His first daily newspaper job was at the Columbus Dispatch, where he was hired in 1981 when he was in his early 20s. Jack is currently a contributing opinion columnist and cartoonist for the San Francisco Chronicle. He formerly worked with the Sacramento Bee, the Oregonian, the Detroit Free Press. His work is syndicated by Tribune Content Agency for over 300 newspapers. Jack was the 2016 winner of the Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning and was a finalist for the same in 2012. In addition, he won the Robert F. Kennedy Journalism Award, the Overseas Press Club Award, the Society of Professional Journalists Award, the National Headliner Award, and the Scripps Howard Award, among many other recognitions. He is the author of 10 books, with 4 of them, interestingly, about fly fishing, so hopefully we'll hear about that today. Jack is married with 6 children, and he proudly states that he used to work at newspapers with ink. Please, everybody, join me in welcoming today's speaker, Jack Ohman.
I'm just kind of amazed that this is such a fancy group. I had no idea. We have to give you some money. It looks really fun. Anyway, thank you for coming. That's my QR code for my Substack. If you're so inclined after this, I'll leave it up, and all you do, if you know how to do it, is you just take a picture of it. And there's one outside as well. So, I don't want to speak formally here for too long, because I enjoy doing questions and having actual interaction with you guys. But I thought I would take a few minutes to tell you where I think American editorial cartooning is today. I have just returned from the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists convention outside of Washington, D.C. I'm a former 2-time president of the AAC. When I first started going in 1987, when I was 26 years old, there were about 200 cartoonists attending. We held our meeting at the National Press Club. Mario Cuomo was our luncheon speaker. We were feted in the Rose Garden by a Republican president. Last week, 40 attended, and we were in a small room in a suburban Maryland convention center. But we did have electricity. The internet was shaky. All of the attendees were all hale and well met, and such luminaries as Ann Telness and Kevin Kelleher and Rob Rogers and Dave Horsey, Steve Sack, Steve Broadner, Joel Pett, and many other mega talents were there. I am trying hard to recall if any of us have jobs on daily newspapers today. None of the aforementioned do, nor do I. I am affiliated as a contributing columnist with the San Francisco Chronicle, where I write 1 column per week and draw 1 cartoon for the Sunday edition. I also do 1 cartoon per week for Michael Smerconish on CNN. I draw 3 cartoons for Tribune Content Agency per week. I also have a Substack called You Betcha, which I will mercilessly beg you for support, which I just did. Substack is now 60% of my income. That's where we are in this media culture now. Not as many as Heather Cox Richardson, but we're getting there. Most of the aforementioned cartoonists are also now on Substack. This is probably our future. This year's meeting at the AAC featured fear, but it also featured courage. We are fearful about government crackdowns on speech. We are fearful about being labeled as domestic terrorists. We are fearful about physical violence. We are fearful about the future of American journalism, and you should be too. We have the courage to continue to do this work with your help, and we do need your help. An informed and vocal citizenry is our hope and our salvation, and that's you. Political cartoonists are not court jesters now. We are truth tellers in an increasingly intellectually dishonest and lie-filled political environment. I do have a renewed sense of mission in me in this era. I am not too old for the revolution, if being a revolutionary is caring about the United States Constitution and ethics in government. I come from a cornball, patriotic, Western family where my father won the Bronze Star in Korea. 3 of my uncles were in World War II. 1 won the Distinguished Flying Cross in the Navy. 1 was at D-Day as a combat engineer building that big dock that went up the first day. And 1 was in the Aleutians. They would all be appalled by what's happening in the United States today. My dad in particular, wow. One thing they would never ask is what's in it for them. And that's the determinant ethos of our current power structure. Editorial cartoonists are not the canary in the coal mine now. We're close to extinct. And that's not an accident. When hedge funds eat up local dailies, chew them up, and spit them back in their readers' faces, and charge astronomical amounts of money, that's not an accident. It's an American tragedy. The ones who have survived, like me, have found new outlets and new venues. But as I told Fast Company magazine a few months ago, I found it surprising to be busking on a street corner with the Pulitzer Prize. It happens. I had to learn how to sing, and I did. We all did. I'm very proud of my profession. And now it takes great stamina to remain in this business. There are a lot of supporters of what we do, and I know I take strength from knowing that you are out there, showing up, sharing our work, and promoting what we do. I am confident that we can survive outside the traditional bubble as long as we know that you people have our back. I have felt and experienced so many moving moments after my dismissal, and I have grown stronger knowing that readers here in Sacramento and nationally still care about what I'm doing for a living. I am old enough in this business to have known Herb Bloch, to have known Jules Feiffer and Paul Conrad personally. One thing they didn't do is quit or cower or go into retreat. Herb Bloch endured the McCarthy era, which we are now currently experiencing again. The new McCarthyism witch hunter in chief, Laura Loomer, tried to follow me on Substack. I blocked her, but I need you to know something. That wasn't an accident on her part. They are making a list, and they are checking it twice. I can assure you of that. May I say that I am delighted to be here and to have you with me physically and spiritually. I couldn't be more grateful to you. I promise I will also try to be funny as I do questions, so thank you. I don't like to talk about my work as it comes up, so if you could just ask me questions and I'll just kind of run this thing loosely-goosely. Who's got a question? You have a question? No? Oh, well, thank you. I like that you like that. Very good. Don't you hate it when there's 3 bottles up here and you're like, I don't remember which one's mine? You know? I hope it wasn't Bill Ishmael's. That would be bad. Could I just say also, you had a president named Pam Trump? Yeah. Isn't it great to have a good president? Like who cares about the arts? You know? And I'm sure Norm's fine too, right? Is he?
Oh, over here.
Anyway, okay.
Just a sec.
I had a friend named John McCain. His life was really interesting too. So,
Could you explain to us exactly what Substack is? So, for those of us who are not.
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't know much about it myself.
But
so.
I do know about the Contrarian, and I think they have that now that they're not affiliated with any network anymore, and I think they have Substack. But if you could explain.
Oh, they have Substack. My wife is telling me about
Yeah.
the Contrarian every morning.
Yes. Yes. So what is it?
Well, Substack is an independent writing platform. Like, it's really like Facebook in some ways too, except you monetize it. So I started a Substack called You Betcha, and I have to tell you that it's been a godsend for me emotionally, because it gave me some sense of control back into my career, which I felt like I didn't have. I mean, imagine being in American journalism for the last, say, 20 years. They're just laying people off every quarter almost. So I've spent the back half of my newspaper career worried about it. Now, look, you know, it's a Darwinian world out there, but it's gotten far more Darwinian in American journalism. And so to me, Substack has been a way for me to not just get my work out, but also communicate with an audience. It's very siloed, but I mean, I have 9,000 people reading this thing. And I have about 750 paid subscribers, which is significant and is keeping me going financially. And I know some of you are paid subscribers out there, and thank you very much, whoever you are. And I will give you a hug or something, or a handshake, or my wife will, you know, make me go over and do your yard work later or something. But I'm profoundly grateful to people like you. You got to work for it. So anyway, what I found is interesting about Substack is that I can do whatever I want. And so, you know, I can put up videos, I can do columns. I do, you know, about 3 columns a week, depending on whether the Chronicle runs me or not. I can do all sorts of, I call my audience, you know, You Betcha is high-octane MSNBC content with baby boomer nostalgia. Like, I love writing about the space program, and I love writing about Jack Kennedy, and I love, you know, that sort of stuff. And so there's a significant portion of my audience, like, you know, they're into that. I like write about toys I had in 1964, right? So it's not all just the one thing. And I haven't really written about fishing, but it's a great creative palette for me. And honestly, I hope to eventually just completely transition over to Substack, and I'm not that far away at this point. Not as good as the Contrarian, but I draw better than they do, so anyway. There's some, oh, I know you. How are you? Leslie, yes. I haven't seen you in a while. Last time I saw you was here.
Wow. I think when you wrote your last book and you spoke.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Anyway,
Yeah,
good to see you.
Good to see you. We'll talk later.
We'll talk later. You have to ask
So
me. Yeah.
on a piece like this, how long does it take you to create it, and
Oh.
what's the process?
Oh, you want to talk about my work? Interesting. You know, you never tell an editor how long it takes you to do something, okay? Now, because I'm a pretty high volume artist, and it's very common for me to do 2 cartoons a day now. I'm trying to dial back from that a bit. I got the Chronicle to back me off a bit on that. But, you know, I don't even do a rough anymore. I just do it right on the paper. And I'm still very old school about my work. This is all brush on Strathmore. The cross-hatching is a uniball. I'm very fancy. And I'm not kidding. I letter with a literal flare pen. Okay? So I'm not using, like, fancy stuff. And then I just put it in Photoshop. And, you know, probably takes me, I'll find a more detailed drawing here now that I know how to work this. You know, it depends on how tight the drawing is. I mean, you have to get this right. The posture has to be right. The positioning of the legs have to be right. Maybe that took me 2-3 hours total, start to finish. Now, I do, as I said, old school brush and ink, and I just scan it in and put it in Photoshop. And sometimes I can ink these things or color them in maybe a half hour, 20 minutes, maybe 45. I'll show you some more complicated ones. Quite a number of people who've won Pulitzer Prizes in the last couple of years draw their cartoons entirely on an iPad, which is crazy to me. There's a program called Procreate, and I've messed around with it. I can't get the lettering right, and plus I'm stupid, and I'm always afraid that I'll have to, reverse engineer a mistake on deadline, which is hard enough anyway. I mean, I'm still like, I love whiteout, I got a glue stick. I'm wandering around. I said to my wife, hey, we got a glue stick the other day. She's like, what are you, God, yeah, sure, Benjamin Franklin, there's a glue stick right there, No, we have some mucilage, Remember mucilage? That was better to sniff, Kidding. This one I liked. I liked it because I wasn't obsessed with making sure that I got the Shepard Fairey artwork absolutely dead on. But I mean, it's an impression, right? So, and honestly, sometimes I get cartoon ideas, but this is what I would call classic comparison contrast, right? I don't have the idea. I know I've got the Obama thing. I know I've got hope. I know on this one, I went through words that rhyme with hope on my telephone. And I was like, there's grope. Well, there you go. That's your punchline. This isn't even rocket science. This isn't fireworks. This is just me with my weird head. But, my daughter's quite a successful young novelist. She's got, her name is Jules Ohman. And she's got her second book coming out, Penguin Random House, in 27. And, she's always like, Daddy, there's only 8 basic novel plots, right? And there's kind of 8 basic political cartoon approaches. I haven't written them all down, but this is just classic. This was a cartoon I liked that I did a couple weeks ago that I called several of my cartoon colleagues and I said, hey, what do you think? And yeah, do it, But I did, they get you thinking. This is the trouble with the new political culture, and particularly in the last couple of days with the shooting of Kirk, where, well, I was delighted to have 5 days off when that happened, just to think about it, because people jumped in and look what happened. I mean, listen, that kid should not have been shot, okay? Let's just get that straight. But if somebody tweets about it or says something about it, I mean, that's when you're starting to tread into dangerous territory, okay? Don't think there hasn't been some right-wing guy on Twitter saying he was glad that somebody shot, the Minnesota House Speaker and her husband to death. You know what I mean? They didn't even send the president didn't make a statement after that, okay? So spare me the, whatever you want to call it. I keep looking at you, Leslie. I'm sorry. It's not about you. Leslie, what is it with you? Somebody out there with a microphone?
Do you have another question here?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm still trying to remember which is my water.
You just mentioned you called some colleagues about some of your works. I'm just wondering how you do draw that line and monitor yourself to keep yourself safe, I would say, in a sense.
Well, every other person is armed. That's my team. I mean, literally, do I worry about my physical safety? Was that what you were asking me? I don't think about it. I mean, I should, I guess, a little bit. I went through the first administration, and I expressed some concern to Mandy, my wife, about it, and there's not really anything you can do. They killed Jack Kennedy in the backseat of a car. You know what I mean? It's like there's only so much you can do. I think what they want is for me to quit, and they want me to be afraid, and I'm not going to do that. I have to tell you. Let me tell you about this guy. Let me tell you about this guy. You know, oh God, did I do a Trump thing? I shouldn't have done that. In 1968, we had just moved to Washington, D.C. from Marquette, Michigan. Has anybody ever been up to Marquette, Michigan before in the UP? There's my boy right there, my beloved Dave Powell and Dee Powell, my neighbors. They're just the nicest people ever. Thank you for coming. And I moved to Washington in March of 1968. I'm 7 years old. Remember what happened in March of 1968? So a couple weeks later, King was assassinated, and there I was. I had never played with a black child in Marquette, Michigan. There was one black kid who was Egyptian in the class, and then I went down, and all of a sudden I'm going to Cora Kelly and Arlington or Alexandria, Virginia, and it was like, well, all of a sudden I had a lot of black friends, right? I mean, and I'm saying that in a self-knowledge way. And my parents were not racist in any way whatsoever, but like I was very culturally isolated. And so we get down to DC, King gets killed. I watched, as a 7-year-old, Washington burning as a child. We were up in Roslyn. You guys know DC, that's a good place to look at Washington burning, right? I was just there the other day. A couple months later, I got up and my mother was crying. I said, what's the matter? And she kept saying, that poor woman, that poor woman, that poor woman. And she was talking about Rose Kennedy. And Senator Kennedy had been shot. So he died later that day or the next day. And so my family went to Arlington Cemetery. And I saw President Johnson go by and, Senator Kennedy and Ethel, and I'm pretty sure I remember Jackie Kennedy as well. And we're right up by President Kennedy's grave site, if you're familiar with Arlington. And so there was a woman sitting on a cooler next to us. There was no security. Like, people were bringing coolers into RFK's burial. Very hot night. And Johnson went by. He was the first president I ever seen, and I'm sure that was the first president my mother had ever seen. And she goes, oh my God, it's Lyndon Johnson. And this woman turns to my mother and says, I don't give a shit about Lyndon Johnson. I just want to see Bobby, right? And so the hearse came by, and I remember the hyper-illumination of the flash bulbs. Remember flash bulbs? On the flag in the back of the hearse. This is my 7-year-old memory. I probably went 20 years without thinking that was anything, okay? So like, I was like probably the youngest person who could remember that President Kennedy was assassinated. So that's informed a lot of the way I think about US politics now. And I think that that's just a really strong line of demarcation with boomers, right? How many of you remember when Kennedy was killed? Raise your hands. Most of you, okay. And it was a shattering moment, even if, hey Ed, there's this shattering moment where we all have that reference point, and people younger than that do not have this reference point. And I was watching the coverage of Kirk the other day, and it's like, you'd think Kennedy was killed, And so anyway, fast forward to 1999, and I thought it would be a good idea to bring RFK Jr. to Portland State to be our homecoming speaker. And the guy was absolutely brilliant, honestly. He was exactly his father's age. He was 42. He was a very handsome guy. I mean, and looked like his dad, but taller, more athletic guy, and did a great job. And I was his driver. And so, which is just crazy for me to even conceive of, because I was like the guy from the alumni board. So I found him very charming. He wouldn't ask you a question, but he would answer you like in a normal way, And I told him I went to the burial at Arlington, and he said, thank you for telling me. It keeps him alive. And I later, about 10 years later, won the Robert F. Kennedy Journalism Award, where you get a call from Ethel Kennedy. And can you imagine? I mean, and I told her, I went to the burial at Arlington. She said exactly the same thing. So I've had this kind of weird, tangential, contact with these folks. So fast forward again to, I did a column about Newsom and not pardoning Sirhan. And I got the nicest letter from Bob Kennedy's son, Chris, in Illinois, and thanking me for that. And it's been really moving for me to just have these little kind of brushes. But this son of a bitch, I mean, he's so profoundly mentally ill. That's what's weird about this, is like people who would not, get the time of day, to work at, Starbucks, are like in charge of our national health care, And I don't get it. It's an administration full of fifth-rate lunatics, and boy, do I miss Dick Nixon and Reagan and all those guys. Maybe that some of you voted for, I mean, I voted for Republicans for the U.S. Senate. Jack Ohman. I voted for Senator Hatfield twice. Yeah, well, I voted for Packwood. And before, the events. So, anyway. How I do my job is I think that my little superpower is like, I'm thinking of phrases. I don't think of them as puns, but like I have an ability to turn words around, and so I kept thinking. And all I do, ask Mandy, she's right here, I just walk around saying the same phrase for an hour or two, Kennedy Center, Kennedy Center, Kennedy Self-Center. Oh, that's an idea. And then, there you go, that's the job. I'm kind of digging this PowerPoint. I haven't done one in like decades. I did this one right after the terrible shooting in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago. And, I grew up with guns. Like, I grew up in Minnesota. I own guns. I know, again, that's like, Jack Ohman owns guns. I'm not into it. Most of them are my dad's, but, I think I should be able to own guns. But I also know which guns I shouldn't own, right? I mean, I have deer rifles and shotguns and pistols and all that stuff. I'm not into it. I haven't fired them in decades probably, but I thought it was fascinating the other day that Kirk was shot with a bolt-action rifle. Did you see that? I mean, the cat is out of the bag now, whether it's bolt-action rifles or pistols or shotguns or assault weapons or whatever. And I was talking to one of my colleagues a couple days ago about how many gun cartoons we've all drawn. I mean, if you think about, just over the course of, say, the last 10 years where you had, 50, 60 really strong editorial cartoonists cranking out the same kind of gun cartoons on the same, subject. And when it happens the 9,468th time, I mean, where do you go to the well? And what's sad about this is every shooting has its own weird little personality or personality disorder. And so, it was a church, and we literally worship guns on every level in this culture.
So, Jack, we have a question here.
This was easy to draw. Yes.
Well, I was just wondering what your art education was.
I don't have one. I have a bachelor's degree in history. I graduated from college at age, I'm not kidding, 38. I wanted to finish my college degree before my kids got theirs. And I really enjoyed it. And then I started a master's degree in history. And then I have, what I really recommend is my honorary doctorate in humane letters from Portland State. It was really easy. Of course, I have to write development a check for $5,000 for the rest of my life. But I've never taken an art course that I can recall. Like, I didn't take any college level art. What I did do was I studied art on my own, because I'm something of an autodidact, and so I found that the way I wanted to study was good for me. I studied illustrators. I didn't just look at other cartoons. I loved Edward Hopper. I love John Singer Sargent. I love, Winslow Homer. My wife and I are very regular visitors to the De Young, and we come here and we support both this museum and the De Young, unless we change credit cards, but I think we have been for some time. So, but it's possible to do that, and then I talked to other editorial cartoonists and artists over the years. I just a new delightful friend I made a couple of weeks ago is a guy named Chuck Pyle, who's one of our leading illustrators in the United States, and he lives over in Sonoma, so I'm going to go over to his studio in a couple of weeks, and I'm just going to look at what he does and how he does it. So that's my art education. Yes?
Just a sec.
Yeah.
Oh, he heard me. I just want to know how large the original piece is. Is it, when you said Strathmore paper, that's large.
Yeah, the originals are 8.5 by 12, but I do use Strathmore vellum surface. Well, this one was funny because I knew that everybody was going to do this, all my colleagues, and just how was somebody going to do it. And I don't want to describe some of the things that I saw that were done with this as metaphor. I mean, it's disgusting in and of itself. What's weird about, I'm sorry to say, a 47-year career. And I can remember every couple of years, some new barrier will drop on taste, I remember when, the Reagan administration, there was something about urine testing, and I was like, oh, God, I was like 30 at the time or something, I was like, oh, is this where we are, doing cartoons about urine testing, And then we get this guy as president who's drawing, female genitalia on, his birthday greetings and stuff. And so, I mean, that's what I really... Look, I'm not a crass person. Anybody out there who knows me, I'm from Minnesota, I take it seriously, And I found that just putting all of Trump's policies aside, what really bothers me is his aesthetic sense. And I had this, look what, they've just completely covered the Oval Office, in gold leaf or something. And then the greatest thing I saw the other day, and I'm sure it's true, because it was on the internet, was that there was a big piece of gold ornamentation in the background of one of, next to the oval on the fireplace, And it turns out it was purchased at Home Depot for $59.99. Class with a K, But tearing up the Rose Garden and turning it into Mar-a-Lago and putting a dance floor down and then all the other stupid things that he wants to do. Every morning, and thank God my wife is here to ratify all the crazy stuff that I'm about to say, but how many times do I say, if Obama had done that all the time, any given day? Well, I love George W. Bush now, lady. Yeah. No, he didn't. No, at least they had, the Bushes were tasteful. They're from, they're from Greenwich, they're Kennebunk Park, preppy, But this guy is just like the worst. They picked the uniquely annoying person to have as president of the United States for me on an aesthetic level. Like the red ties, Jesus. Anyway, this cartoon, I thought, okay, I'm just going to use the image, and I thought, I don't want to embellish it in any way, but I thought, okay, well, I just made a copy of that and turned it into that. And these cartoons, they take longer than you would think because you're always adjusting the sizes and the proportions and stuff. So it actually took me about a half an hour to get it right because I was messing around with it in Photoshop. This I drew the other day. You probably haven't seen it yet. Did you know the word prayer is a word? P-R-E-Y-E-R, and I thought it was, and I did not know that because I went to a state school and I'm very poorly art educated, but I really like this one. I like drawing people as some sort of animal. I love the anthropomorphication of these things. And I love drawing Vance for some reason. J.D. Vance is the guy from high school, who just, he was like third chair violin and, not cutting it and couldn't get on the teams. And then they gave him nuclear weapons, right? So I did this yesterday as well. I also try not to get locked into Uncle Sam. I know a lot of my colleagues have done that. So I like to kind of rotate my every person, male, female, U.S. figure, and so I decided to go with a woman yesterday. Also note that I've been kind of putting, oh, there's a little laser pointer. See that little bald spot up there? I'm loving this. Bye, Ed. Nice to know you, Mr. Bond. So this was again, these are pretty simple drawings, but they have to be done right, So I'm very careful about my caricatures and the hand position and the way the eyes look. I pride myself on my caricature ability, and I'm kind of old school that way. I mean, I'm a craftsman. I'm not completely crippled by obsessive, compulsive disorder like most really good artists are, but it's important for me to communicate, not just to ridicule somebody in caricature so much, but to convey who they are. And if you're good at caricature, you can do that without, going completely overboard, right? And caricature is a fascinating subject within editorial cartooning, which I may get to. Well, here's a good illustration. I like to do caricatures. Now, I will tell you that I did Johnson, Carter, Kennedy, Reagan, Bush, Ford, Nixon from memory, and Lincoln. I had to go look at a Washington and a FDR and a Hamilton, and I wanted to make sure I got Roosevelt right. And that took all day, pretty much. I mean, for me, that would be 5-6 hours worth of work, which is pretty much all day for me. I've got a lot of other things to do, but I also want to make sure that when I'm drawing people, regular people, they're not all white guys. So I'm very careful about, being, it's not DEI, it's just America, right? I mean, make people, not everybody's a 65-year-old white guy. This is one of my favorite cartoons this year. You got to give it a minute. We're still waiting for the deep state to come in, right? And this is just another example of this. I don't know what these people are doing, like renaming the Defense Department, the War Department, but this is such flagrant racism now. They're not even hiding it anymore. Yes.
Appreciate your work a lot.
Thank you.
Reminds me of Will Rogers.
He couldn't draw.
I'm
Are you
wondering if
kidding
Will
me?
Rogers had an influence on you.
It's funny, we were at the airport the other day and we saw Will Rogers World, airport, and I was like, no, not really, it's weird. I mean, if you want to talk about 1930s writing influences, I mean, E.B. White. I read a lot of New Yorker writers from, Dorothy Parker and, James Thurber I was absolutely obsessed with, and I still have, this complete set of Thurber's works and in the New American Library set, and lived in Columbus, and, when I was a very young guy. And, Thurber's very much a living presence in Columbus, Ohio. And so I found Thurber to be very influential. Will Rogers was somebody, when I was a kid, they kept recycling his quotes. I mean, I acknowledge he's a great American and a great humorist. He just was not an influence for me. Another guy I really liked a lot is Gene Shepard. Do you remember Gene Shepard? Okay, there you go. And I listened to, you can go on YouTube and you can just dial up Gene Shepard from 1962 and there he is, And I listened to those a lot and asked my poor wife who has to listen to them, But I have a lot of, influences from back then that probably would be unusual for somebody my age. I mean, I had the usual Mad magazine, National Lampoon kind of influences, but I was more influenced by these 30s, 40s, 50s humorists. Garrison Keillor, too. I mean, I loved Garrison Keillor when I was a young guy. Yes. Let Ed ask a question. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Jack, I've noticed that your drawings of Trump over the years have, they've transformed from, and actually, in a way, they're more simple, which is because it looks like you're getting straight to the heart of his lack of same.
Plus, I'm blind in one eye. Seriously.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's all right.
But I was wondering,
Cataract surgery is beautiful. It'll come back.
Is that a conscious effort? Not that losing your eye, but but as far as that, some of the stuff is getting more simple in the lines because you're getting straight to the heart of your character.
That's an astute and valid observation. In a universe of your always astute and valued, observations. I think some of it is my vision, honestly. I had cataract surgery a couple years ago, and I was blind. I mean, I went blind during the pandemic. I had a lane that I could see in my right eye that was just good enough. I couldn't read emails, pretty much. Anything I would write was at 36-point type, okay? Speaking of James Thurber as your influence. And then I got that fixed, and all of a sudden I had this kind of like 20/20 sniper vision here, and then this one's going away. But so that to me was, what I noticed when I was going blind was that it wasn't that I was messing up small details, it was when I was scanning the entire drawing, I was missing things because I wasn't perceiving that I should have put a fence over there, or I should have put more trees over there, or I should have filled in that background. That's what I saw. I think I'm getting better at caricature as I've gotten older because it's distillation. You want to get all that extra stuff off of there. And plus, the other thing is Photoshop has made all political cartoonists heavily reliant on it because, we just used to really be super careful about how we were doing everything in black and white. And if we don't like it on the black and white, we can just say, we'll just fix it in Photoshop. Right? Fact. And so if you look at, maybe not, well, I can tell you, there's probably 5 or 6 different colors in Trump's face, and I've taken to adding the, little orange wash on there. But that Photoshop makes up a lot of ground in terms of what you would be doing on the detail, on the cross-hatching. I know this can get very arcane, but now I feel like I have an art education now, which is... Now, if you... Some editor told me to take the orange blob out of it. I guess that was the version where I didn't. I can't remember. But I think, as I've gotten older, if you look at some of my work for the Chronicle, I don't think I did any really detailed cartoons for this presentation at all. But like if you look at that Sunday piece, there's a lot of little Easter eggs and very detailed little things and words and arrows and footnotes and asterisks and things like that. That's kind of how my mind really works. I'm not, obviously a trained artist, but I certainly know how to do it. And I think when I've got a solid idea, you don't want to overburden it with trees and cross-hatching and, it doesn't matter, right? I'm happy with it's weird to get to be 65. And I'm a very happy 65-year-old, okay? And wow, Social Security is fantastic. But it feels like, God, I just learned how to draw now. I got to retire, I don't have any plans to retire, but you know what I mean? It's like you finally master something, or as close to somebody can try to master something. And, but there's nobody coming behind me in this business. You know, there's just not the funding out there. What else we got? Yes, ma'am, in the front.
Let me get the mic here to you.
Yeah.
So I'm, excuse me, this one has been on my mind, and I first want to tell you I am a newspaper hog and miss it so much. I miss the newspaper. I came up in Tribune. You know, Oakland Tribune Chronicle was always a little bit more conservative. But on the internet the other day, well, I'll just put it this way. Someone from the news, I think KGO or something in the Bay Area where I grew up, posted, really good guy too, and he still is. He posted something about this latest thing with the assassination attempt, but he could tell he was really frustrated because where he was feeling bad, he said, was that the truth is not being told. And so I got to thinking about the newspapers and the coverage on TV, and my response to that is, you know, when you look at the old newspaper guys, and I mentioned to him, I wrote back, Belva Davis and Walter Cronkite, you know, people that I kind of felt told the truth. And so my question to you, I know I need to get it out, is that...
I'm enjoying this. Just, you're doing great.
Really yeah. Is that, are you afraid of the truth? And I know you're not, but do any of these get rejected by the newspaper, you feel, because you're telling the truth? And people seem like they don't want to hear the truth. So it has to be a lot of pressure on those that your responsibility is to get it out there and for us to make a decision based on informed information. Sorry.
No, that's a great question. And I don't just say that because everybody says that's a great question, because it actually is, you know. The Chronicle is, wow, do they let me do what I want to do? Okay, they really do. If you don't subscribe to the Chronicle, please subscribe to the Chronicle, because they're really one of the few newspapers in California, particularly in Northern California, who are trying, you know. They're covering things, and they're trying to do the right thing over there. Look, nobody's perfect, but I mean, my editors, they let me do what I want, and it's a good thing. And I think the reason is that they trust me, number one, and number two, they understand their audience over in the Bay Area. I mean, if you start throwing Uncle Sam's and Elephants and Donkeys over at, you know, people in Tiburon, they're going to be like, we had Phil Frank, man, come on, you know. I mean, they had some major cartoonists over there who, you know, and Herb Cain and all those great writers from the Bay Area. So they don't want namby-pamby, you know, namby-pamby stuff. So I was told when I was hired at the Chronicle to put the snark at 11. So that's what I try to do. And I mean, it's a great environment for me. I have well, you know, we all have editors, right? But basically, I know that I can do whatever I want to do as long as I say it competently. How's that? Yes, ma'am. Me too.
Is there a significance in why you write it that way? Because I thought for years it was a P.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. No. Oh, my signature. Oh, I hate my last name. I feel like my name is Jack Ohman, O-H-M-A-N. We all have those names, right? I drew that from memory. I thought it looked more like me at 40 than Kennedy, but, you know, projecting. You know, signatures are very idiosyncratic, you know, like everybody's signature now. Of course, everybody now is like the credit card signature, you know, and so over. you know, when I was coming into the profession, Pat Oliphant, begins with an O, A-N, very similar word, you know. And so, right? And so to me, I could show you, you know, my signature from 1981 versus my signature in 1989 versus, and this is kind of how it's settled out. Now, I have never until the second you said that perceived that A as a P. But that's, you know, I'm blind in one eye, so what can I tell you? But I will, maybe I'll bring that down a little bit. But I mean, it's just your branding, right? I mean, it's like, wow, I wish I'd been better at designing logos 25 years ago. I mean, and I know cartoonists who really spend almost too much time on their signatures, you know. My struggle as an artist is loosening up my stuff, loosening my line. Because I'm from Minnesota, you just like, come on, man, it's okay. There can be some hairy lines out there on the outside of the edges. And so that's also something I've worked really hard at, Ed, you know, to your point, is just, in fact, at the convention the other day, they showed us a documentary about Pat Oliphant, who's now 90 years old and blind, lives in Santa Fe, and can't draw anymore. But wow, they showed some stuff that he was doing, you know, in his 60s and 70s, where that's a true artist, is making all those weird little lines loose and then coherent all at the same time. And so I'm still trying to learn this illustration thing. I'll tell you what, the cartoons I picked were the ones, A, that I liked, and B, that were simple. You know, or you didn't have to like kill yourself reading, but I really like this a lot, and I particularly like doing drawings where there's simple but complicated things in it, where you can look at it and not get overwhelmed by it. But for some reason, I just love drawing those weird vines and have for years. Another thing I really enjoy drawing is like ceilings, like with duct, you know, and pipes and wiring and things like that. This was one of my favorite cartoons this year because some administration official said, oh, well, you know, they're just going to be, you know, screwing in little screws, right? Well, there you go. That's what my dad used to say. Well, there you go. That's from Jack Ohman, 1968. But it's a very, I mean, if you look at it, it's a very simple idea for me. I mean, it's a very, I've really tried to grow as an artist. I've really tried to do bolder graphic work. And so this was one where I thought, yeah, baby, that's the way I want it to look. You know, it doesn't have to all be filled in. This is a rather actually typical cartoon that I do. I love doing, a friend of mine, a cartoonist, Mike Peters, remember Mike Peters, who's still very much banging them out there at age 82. He calls it a single theme spread, which is you take a premise and then you do 4 or 5 gags, 6 gags off the theme, right? And so this is the kind of thing that I can, my son is currently living with us, and he's a freelance writer, and my wife is also very good at this. I'll walk around, I'll say, okay, Trump-approved administration, Sesame Street characters. I got 3 gags, I need 2 more. People, please. It's a fact. And so Bobby, my son, and I will sit around and go, okay, well, what about, you know, Kermit the Frog, he'll say, or something. I can't remember if he did it or not, but that's a rather typical day around my house because, you know, I'm the editor and the laundry person and, you know. But so it's, I liked this cartoon. And I mean, I'm not into self-loathing about my work. But there are things that I like better than others. You know, there are pieces that I've written I like better than others. You have to look at the title of the magazine. That's what I'm really proud of. See, there's your joke, right? That is an Ed Goldman joke if I ever saw one. Unpopular scions. Yeah. This was a very quick idea, but I really liked it. I thought it was nice and simple, got right to it. Again, there's not a lot of illustration, but it has to be right, you know. This is when Trump, went on the warpath against Springsteen the other day, or month, or whenever it was. It all runs together in the crisis, doesn't it? I had a colleague, Jeff Danziger, draw. You got to be careful with Noose cartoons, and so my editor at Tribune let this go, and he had a Noose cartoon a couple weeks ago that they didn't let go. But I don't know why this survived, but I was very pleased with it. And that's my QR code.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much.
Am I done now?
I think. Do you have anything else you want?
No, I was just. I could have thought of a much better way to do this, but can I just
perfect.
thank everybody?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're all. I'm so pleased that you came. I haven't done a really good big talk in Sacramento in a long time. I mean, in Sacramento proper. I like going out to that Lincoln City Del Webb thing. Wow, those are fun people out there. You got any friends out there? But I was so touched to be invited, and my delightful wife came with me, and it was really fun to have her come, and she's my partner for life, and she's also just the smartest person ever, so I was glad that she was able to come. But anyway, thank you so much. This is such a fun group, and I will figure out a way to contribute to you guys, and it's all good. And if you can see it in your heart to contribute to my Substack, you can subscribe for free, or if you're Dave Powell, I'll put you down for $100,000 a year. So thank you very much.